Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. It started on a Wednesday. I remember that because I got home earlier than usual. Meetings were canceled, and for the first time in weeks, I thought maybe we'd sit down together. A quiet evening. Just 1 hour without tension. No screens. No silence pretending to be peace. Instead, she was waiting in the living room like she'd been standing there for hours. Before I could take off my shoes, she said it. Flat voice. Dead stare. No obedience, no intimacy. I'm done pretending. I didn't flinch. I didn't answer. She wanted heat. Wanted me to push back, to beg for clarity, for softness. But I'd already stopped asking. I walked past her, dropped my keys on the counter. Not loud. Just final. Behind me, she called out, "You're not going to say anything?" I turned my head once. You said it all. That night, I didn't reach for her. Didn't ask how her day was. Didn't try to fill the silence. I lay on my side of the bed, staring at the ceiling, while she shifted next to me like she expected me to break. Like I'd give her one more performance, me trying to fix what she kept breaking. But I didn't move. The next morning, she left early. No text. No note. Just a cold cup of coffee on the counter, untouched. A quiet metaphor. I took my time getting ready. Looked in the mirror and saw it for the first time. How tired I looked, not from work or sleep, but from carrying a marriage on my back while she called it a partnership. For years, I thought if I just loved her better, she'd meet me halfway. All I did was teach her how much I'd tolerate. Now, obedience was the price for touch? If obedience was the cost, I'd rather be broke. That night, she came home late. Said nothing. I didn't ask where she'd been. Didn't offer to reheat dinner. I sat with my book. Let the silence hang. She stood near the hallway, waiting for routine. My attention. My care. My question. It never came. After a minute, she spoke. So that's it? You're just ignoring me now. I looked up slowly. You drew the line. I'm staying behind it. She turned away, slammed a cabinet she didn't need to open. Not because she was hungry, but because the silence was louder than she expected. That's when I knew. She wasn't ready for peace. She only knew how to win wars. But this time, there was no fight. Just absence. And I was only getting started. She didn't notice at first. Maybe she thought I was sulking. Playing the same game she'd mastered, pull away, wait for attention, then reward with crumbs. But I wasn't sulking. I was switching off. At breakfast, I didn't ask if she wanted coffee. Didn't set her mug next to mine like I used to. I sat across from her, phone in hand, reading headlines, while she scrolled through hers. She talked about work, some meeting that got rescheduled, a coworker's birthday lunch. I nodded once. No reaction. No follow-up. That was the first time I saw it. A flicker of hesitation behind her eyes. Like something didn't land the way she expected. She was waiting for a version of me that no longer existed. That night, I got home late. On purpose. Stopped by the gym. Took the long way home. I was in no rush. She was on the couch in a silk robe she hadn't worn in over a year. A glass of wine in her hand. Hairstyled like we had plans. We were going to eat together, she said. I didn't respond right away. Just took off my jacket. Calm. Quiet. I already ate. Her eyes narrowed just a little. But she smiled tight, forced. Maybe tomorrow, then? Maybe. I walked upstairs. Door closed behind me. No explanation. No anger. The next night, she cooked. Set the table. Lit a candle. I sat. Ate. Thanked her. Nothing more. When her hand brushed mine across the table, I pulled back, not violently. Just like I didn't notice. Like it didn't register as important. She froze. Looked down. The game was changing. She used to control intimacy like a faucet, turning it off when she needed leverage, on when she wanted peace. Now, she had nothing to withhold. I'd stopped needing it. In the days that followed, she tried harder. Texts during work. Hope your day's going okay. Want me to grab anything from the store? I replied, always. Short. Polite. Surgical. Fine. No. Thanks. All good. No warmth. No bitterness. Just enough to remind her I wasn't gone, only different. I'd become the man she once accused me of being. Distant. Disconnected. But now, it was intentional. The silence she built to punish me had become the silence she couldn't survive. And I was just getting comfortable inside it. The shift wasn't loud. It never is. She started noticing the pattern. I wasn't reacting the way I used to. No more sighs. No tension in my shoulders. No questions about where she'd been or who she texted late at night. I was there, but no longer orbiting her. She created space. Now I was living in it on my terms. I changed my schedule. Started going to bed later. Getting up earlier. Hitting the gym before work, not after. She began asking vague questions, wrapped in casual concern. Are you sleeping okay? You seem off. I answered the same way every time, steady. Unbothered. I'm good. Better than ever. And it was the truth. I had stopped measuring my peace by her mood. Stopped chasing closeness that always came with a leash. The silence between us wasn't punishment anymore. It was peace. One Friday evening, I came home with groceries. Nothing special. Just things I knew I'd eat. She hovered in the kitchen while I unpacked, I scanning the bags. You didn't get my yogurt, she muttered. I didn't look up. Just said, didn't know you needed it. It landed. Quiet. Precise. She stood there for a second too long, then walked away. That weekend, I cooked myself dinner. Took my time. A recipe I hadn't made in years. The kind she used to request. She watched me from the hallway as the house filled with the scent. That smells amazing, she said. I didn't respond. Just plated one serving. Sat down alone. Her plate stayed clean in the cupboard. That night, I took the trash out. Walked past her on the couch without a word. She was dressed up. Subtle makeup. Hair done. I didn't ask why. Didn't compliment her. Didn't give her anything she hadn't earned. She looked up once. I didn't meet her eyes. Later, I heard her on the phone. Soft voice, low whisper. He just doesn't care anymore. It's like I'm invisible. She wasn't wrong. The version of me she thought would beg had been replaced by someone who no longer needed her to notice him. She had spent years setting rules. Now I was the one living by them, only I enforced them with silence, not control. The absence she once weaponized was now a wall she couldn't climb. And every day, I built it higher. Disappearing didn't mean leaving the house. It meant removing access, without saying a word. I stopped responding to every emotional breadcrumb she dropped. No more glances across the room. No more saving her from her own silence. No more jumping in to fill dead space with reassurance. I gave her exactly what she asked for. Distance. She tried small tests. Left her favorite sweater draped over my chair. Played soft music from the kitchen while I worked. Made coffee just the way I liked it, and said nothing when I ignored the cup. But this wasn't about proving I didn't care. It was about no longer pretending I still needed her approval to breathe. She asked if I wanted to watch something we used to binge together. I said I already had plans. She didn't ask what kind. She didn't have the right anymore. Saturday morning, I left early. Hit the gym, stopped for breakfast alone, walked through the farmer's market. The old me would have texted her, picked something up just for her, maybe flowers, maybe her favorite pastry. Now, my hands were full of things that had nothing to do with her. When I came back, she was waiting in the kitchen. You were gone a while, she said, almost casual. I nodded. Had a full day. She blinked, expecting more. I offered nothing. Later that evening, I plated my dinner like it was an occasion. One candle. Jazz playing softly from the corner speaker. She walked by, saw the setup, and paused. You're eating alone? I'm not lonely, I said. I'm just not sharing space with someone who said she didn't want to be part of it. She stood there, stunned. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't look away. She lingered, then walked off without a word. After that, she started trying again, but not for the right reasons. She wanted to be noticed, not to reconnect. She was testing the temperature, not apologizing for the storm. I let her. Each attempt landed like a stone in water, barely a ripple. She texted me more. I answered less. She bought wine one evening, placed it on the counter like a peace offering. I thanked her but didn't open it. She waited. I didn't offer. Because gratitude and intimacy aren't the same. And I was done performing thankfulness for gestures that came too late. This version of me wasn't born from resentment. It was built on her blueprint. She showed me what distance looked like, and now she was tasting it from the other side. Only difference? I wore it better. I noticed the shift when she started asking questions she once mocked. Do you want anything from the store? What would you like for dinner? Her voice had softened, but the tone wasn't warmth, it was uncertainty dressed as effort. I gave neutral answers. Whatever you feel like making. Nothing in particular. No sarcasm. No edge. Just surface-level truth. The kind that doesn't offer a handle to grip. It rattled her. She had built control on emotional response, on knowing how I'd react to her presence, her withdrawal, her return. But I'd taken myself off the board. Now she was trying to play a game without rules. And I wasn't keeping score anymore. She lingered in the kitchen more often, started humming again while cooking, loud enough for me to hear from the living room. The performance had returned. Smiles that didn't reach her eyes. Laughter that came half a second too late. Compliments dropped like bait. But I wasn't biting. One Sunday, her sister dropped by, unannounced. Mara had always been sharp. Not cruel, but cutting. The kind of woman who could read a room with surgical precision. She looked at the space between us on the couch, then at my stillness, and raised an eyebrow. "You two okay?" Before my wife could answer, I said it. "We're excellent." Not sarcasm. Not a jab. Just cold truth, delivered flat and final. Mara didn't buy it. She tilted her head. "You're different." I stopped needing what wasn't mine to have. Mara nodded slowly, like she understood more than she was ready to admit. Later, at the door, my wife whispered, "You embarrassed me." I looked at her. Calm. Steady. By answering a question truthfully? She didn't respond. That night, she cooked again. A full meal. Table set. Candles lit. I ate. Said thank you. Then washed my own plate and went upstairs. She sat at the table alone for a long time. That week, she tried touch. Small gestures, a hand on my shoulder, fingers brushing my back. I didn't move. Didn't lean in. Didn't flinch. One night, she finally said it out loud. "You're really not going to touch me?" I answered without looking up. "You said what you needed. I'm just honoring your words." Her face cracked. "I didn't mean it like this." "Then how did you mean it?" She didn't have an answer. Because what she really meant was, she thought distance would make me crawl. Instead, it made me stand taller. She started staying up later. Not for work. Not for herself. Just lingering. Scrolling her phone on the couch with the screen brightness low. Waiting. She hovered near me in the mornings, asked if I wanted coffee, even when I'd already poured mine. Her tone was different now, less declarative, more searching. She was trying to be seen. But I didn't look through the lens she was used to. Not anymore. She followed me into rooms she once ignored. My office, the garage, the porch. Sat near me with books she didn't read. Played music I liked at low volume. Like proximity alone might restart what she had shut off. But I learned something dangerous. I didn't need her. And that truth, more than distance, more than silence, is what started to unravel her. She wasn't ready for quiet that didn't ache. She was prepared for rage, accusations, even betrayal. But peace? That was unfamiliar terrain. One evening, we were invited to a friend's dinner party. One of those public rituals where couples perform togetherness under warm lighting. She dressed up, hair curled, lipstick sharp, heels high. The kind of effort I hadn't seen since before she decided love required obedience. I noticed, of course, but I said nothing. At the dinner, she leaned into my conversations, laughed too loudly at my dry remarks, finished my stories before I could. She was trying to pull us back into the frame, but I wasn't holding the camera anymore. During dessert, the host asked everyone to name one thing they admired about their partner. She froze, wine glass trembling. "I admire how steady he is." A few polite claps. Awkward smiles. She looked at me, waiting for a flicker of response. There was none. On the walk to the car, she asked quietly, "Do you hate me?" I shook my head. "I just don't chase storms anymore." She stood there like she expected lightning to strike. But it didn't. Just silence. At home, I went straight to bed. She stayed behind, scrolling, searching. Later, she came to bed in one of those silk slips she used to wear as bait. She didn't say a word. Just slid under the covers, slow and careful. I turned off the light. Felt her watching me in the dark. But I'd already turned the page. And she was still reading from a script I'd outgrown. By week 3, the silence had changed its tone. It wasn't a pause anymore. It was presence. Defined. Solid. She moved through the house like a visitor in a place she once owned. Words like boundaries and autonomy disappeared from her vocabulary. Once her weapons, now they hung empty in the air, because what do you call control when no one's playing along? She tried to return to routine. Asked about my day. Commented on things she used to ignore. My gym schedule, the way I folded laundry, even the books I read. It wasn't curiosity. It was panic dressed in politeness. She cooked more. Dressed better, even for nothing. Her makeup appeared on random mornings, eyeliner drawn carefully, like precision could rebuild a connection. But I didn't move closer. I kept living. Quietly, fully, without her orbit pulling me off track. Then her sister came again. Mara. She walked in with that same sideways glance, like she could smell discomfort before it spoke. We sat. The three of us. Couch too wide. Space too obvious. Mara noticed. Her eyes moved between us, reading posture like a second language. Finally, she said it. You two okay? Before my wife could lie, I answered. We're excellent. Calm. Cold. Certain. Mara blinked. Not buying it. You're different, she said to me. I stopped needing what wasn't offered. She nodded once. Quiet. Respectful. When she left, my wife followed her to the door. They whispered, but not quietly enough. You embarrass me, she hissed later. I looked at her evenly. By being honest? Her face flushed. Jaw tight. You made it sound like we're done. You said no obedience, no intimacy. I gave you what you asked for. She didn't reply. Because the truth, sharp and simple, left no room for defense. A few days later, Mara texted me. Short message. 5 words. You're not wrong. Be careful. She saw it too. The unraveling. The quiet desperation in her sister's eyes. That night, I came home to lights dimmed, candles lit, the table set like a memory we couldn't access anymore. She stood in the kitchen in the apron I'd bought her years ago. It's your favorite, she said. I thanked her. Ate. Complimented the flavor. But I didn't touch her hand. Didn't reach across the table. Didn't pull her back into a place she'd burned down with her own conditions. That version of me was gone. And she was just starting to understand what that meant. Her effort doubled. Not in words, but in small movements. The way she folded my laundry, the way she sat a little closer, the way she hovered just long enough to be noticed, without asking to be invited. But I didn't need anything from her anymore. And that fact, that truth, unsettled her more than anything I could have shouted. One night, I came home late. Helped a friend move. She was curled up on the couch, remote in hand, not watching the screen. When I entered, she sat up, eyes puffy. I miss you, she said, quiet. I nodded. I understand. She waited. But I offered nothing more. That's it, she asked. What do you want me to say? She looked down, voice cracking. That you miss me too. I sat across from her. Calm. No anger. I miss who we used to be. But I don't miss begging to be seen. Her breath caught. Tears welled, not loud, not theatrical. Real. She covered her face, like the grief had arrived too soon, before she could prepare the mask. She whispered it then. I was wrong about everything. I thought pulling away would make you try harder. I didn't move. You thought I was afraid to lose you, I said, but you never realized I was just trying to hold onto something that had already let go of me. Her sob was full. From the gut. The kind that people can't fake. And I let her cry. Not out of cruelty. But because I'd cried too, just in private, in silence, in the spaces where she used to be. She had built herself against anger. She had armored for conflict. But she never built protection against my peace. Because peace doesn't arrive with a bang. It moves in quietly, like someone who's lived there all along. Over the next few weeks, she tried harder. She asked questions she used to avoid. Can we fix this? Is it too late? I told her I needed time. But it wasn't to decide if she deserved a second chance. It was to decide if I wanted to offer one. Because forgiveness is easy. But rebuilding trust where it was used as leverage? That's a longer road. And I was finally walking it alone, with no one pulling on my sleeve. We stopped pretending. No grand speeches. No dramatic nights of reconciliation. Just space. Uneven. Fragile. She tiptoed around hope, careful not to name it too loudly. But I had learned something she hadn't expected. Care isn't something you beg for. Respect isn't a prize, it's a baseline. She tried to step back into routines, but the shape of them had changed. I no longer reached for her hand across the couch. No longer asked if she needed help with anything. I simply lived. And she watched that life quiet, steady, without the permission she once took for granted. She started asking things she never used to. Can I come with you to the store? Do you want company on your walk? I let her. But I didn't build bridges back. I let her walk her own miles. One night, she asked the real question. Not out loud, but in the way she looked at me as I read on the porch. It was the kind of look that begged for invitation without the words. I looked back. Calm. Even. I'm not who I was, I said. She nodded slowly. I know. And that was it. Not an apology. Not a fix. Just an acknowledgement that the center had shifted. And I was no longer orbiting her gravity. I started naming boundaries. Small, simple ones. I told her I wouldn't accept conditional affection. That silence wouldn't be used as punishment. That intimacy wasn't something to be rationed like credit. If we were going to try again, it had to be from a clean slate, no obedience. No games. Only respect. Or nothing. She agreed. But agreeing is easy. Living it? That's something else entirely. I watched closely, not for slip-ups, but for consistency. Not for perfection, but for sincerity. She started showing up in the ways she never had before, present, available, without expecting a performance in return. And I stayed kind. Present. But measured. Because I wasn't trying to rebuild what was. I was protecting what had grown in the absence of noise, clarity. She had begged to be seen. Now, she was learning what it meant to earn that right, not through effort, but through honesty. And as for me, I wasn't anyone's backup plan. I wasn't waiting in the wings. I was already walking a new path. And if she wanted to come along, it had to be side by side. Not ahead. Not behind. Equal. Or not at all. She never asked for everything back at once. She wasn't that bold anymore. Instead, it came in fragments, folded shirts, shared playlists, soft questions over coffee. I allowed it. But I didn't indulge it. Because what we lost wasn't just connection. It was the foundation. And rebuilding meant more than effort. It meant integrity. Some nights, she'd pause at the bedroom door like she wasn't sure if she belonged there anymore. And truthfully, I wasn't sure either. We still shared space. But the gravity had changed. I didn't carry her mood like I used to. Didn't bend around her distance. Didn't offer myself in the hope she'd choose me again. I had already chosen myself. She noticed it in everything, the way I dressed when I left the house, the way I smiled more around others, the peace I carried that no longer hinged on her. There were no arguments. Just her slowly realizing I had become someone she couldn't define anymore. And that terrified her. One night, we were invited to a charity gala. She assumed I wouldn't go. But I did. I dressed well. Not for her. For me. New suit. Clean shave. No hesitation. When I came down the stairs, she froze. "You're coming?" she asked, tone careful. I said I would. At the event, people noticed. Especially the women in her circle, once allies in subtle critique. Now they laughed too long at my jokes, lingered too close in conversation. I wasn't flirting. I was just present. And she saw it. She placed a hand on my shoulder during a photo. Whispered something about how good I looked. I thanked her. Nothing more. Later, a woman from her office leaned in. "She makes you sound distant," she said with a smile. I smiled back. People show you what they want you to believe. Across the room, my wife watched. And I knew in that moment, what scared her most wasn't the attention I got. It was the fact that she no longer controlled the narrative. That night, she sat at the edge of the bed. Her voice small. "Do you even want me anymore?" I looked at her. The woman who once made me feel like love had prerequisites. And I said it plain. "I don't chase what runs from me." She cried. Quietly. No theatrics. Because she wasn't used to having to ask for what she once withheld so easily. In the silence that followed, I finally understood what peace really meant. It wasn't the absence of her voice. It was the presence of my own boundaries. She taught me how to live without her. And I learned the lesson better than she ever intended. Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe. This is where we talk about what doesn't get forgiven.